Welcome, beloved, to my diary. I'm Tatami. Here we talk about whatever I want to, and today we are going to go over a bunch of these just notes that I've made detailing why it is not at all a waste of your vote to vote third party, specifically Green Party. It is not a vote for Trump and racism and fascism, as some people may want you to somehow believe. It is not a waste of time, a waste of a vote. You do gain things. What are those things? That's basically what I went ahead and researched so I could just detail it all to you. I've just noticed that a lot of people have started really attacking Green voters, which seems to be a pretty regular thing to occur, at least these last few presidential elections that I've been looking into. And this is very surprising to me. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. I think there's part of the group that really honestly feels entitled to the Green vote. They think you might as well just be blue. We're kind of doing some of the things that you're into ish. And so you should just be here and supporting us because we're not the other guys who are really bad people. And then there's the group that I think are just kind of using the shaming thing as a tactic of conversion, like just trying to get you in, even if it means that they're getting you in by making you feel so ashamed that you just kind of trudge over and hand your vote to this other group because you've been convinced that you're just such a bad person for voting for your own beliefs and policies. And, then I think there's also the fact that Green Party is probably an easy target in people's mind, fighting for peace in the environment, and people are just like, no, they'll probably be a pushover. So I think those things combined are why you see a lot of people really heavily go for the Green Party, blame the Green Party, but not as heavily do you see people blame libertarians, even though like 3 times the amount of them voted in the 2016 election. And if you added their votes onto Trump, he would have won by a lot more. So, the Green Party didn't really do anything to hurt Hillary like that. And it's just become really absurd to me, especially when you look at the facts. The facts are that a lot of people do think that we should have more parties than just 2. And the facts are that you cannot have more than 2 really official parties unless you vote for the third party. And the third party gets 5%. And with that 5% of the vote, they can have anywhere from $8 to $10 million from the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, I think is what it's called. It's just the agency that regulates the finances that have to do with our elections here in the United States. And that taxpayer money is given to these next, generations of people impacting politics, right? And that's necessary funds. And not only is it necessary funds, but this also comes with various privileges that make it a bit easier to be just on the ballots and taken more seriously and nationally recognized and shown to more people, seen on more platforms, etc., etc. It goes on, but we're gonna get into that a little bit later. So the money is huge, though. The getting the official status is very big, and you can't do that. That's the only way. That's how it's spelled out. There's no loophole somewhere else like, oh, but there's this other way. Like that's the way. The way is you vote, and the third party is the only way. Voting the third party is the only way to do that. It just is basics. So I also wanted to note this quote from Howie Hawkins, where he was talking about how, but first I just wanted to say, Democrats really do have a lot of nerve blaming the Green Party for things when it's like, y'all are the ones actually in power. You actually have seats in government. So, and you're the ones who, you belly flopped the 2016 election. You fumbled the impeachment. You could have probably impeached him for like 100 other things, like for starters, the human rights violations of Border Patrol and ICE, which he specifically encouraged and wanted more of. And, breaking the emoluments clause, repealing a bunch of environmental protection. I mean, the list just goes on. And it's like, y'all fumbled that. That was you. That wasn't the Green Party sitting up in the House and the Senate. You know what I'm saying? Doing all this shit. That was y'all. You're the ones who have some positions of power. I know you're not in charge of everything, but that's you. So you got a lot of nerve trying to blame the Green Party for shit. So, stop pretending this shit is a fad. The Green Party has been around for 35 years. This is not new. This did not just pop out of nowhere. This is not just suddenly here to be an itch in your side. It's literally an old organization at this point. It's solid, should I say. It's solidly been around for several decades, older than me, okay? So, where was I gonna say? Howie Hawkins. In this quote, he was talking about black voter suppression and how it's impacted like several elections that he's worked in and around. 2000 presidential election, there was black voter suppression in Florida, which swayed against Al Gore. And then he was also talking about in 2016, he says those 75,000 votes were never counted in Detroit. It was the Green Party in court trying to get them counted. And we didn't have standing because the judge ruled we wouldn't have won the election even if all those votes went to us. The Clinton lawyers were right there, and the judge asked them if they wanted to get involved because they had standing. And they said, oh no, we're just here observing. And then they turn around and they blame the Green Party for losing the 2016 election. It's like, like you have these people here corrupt, allowing for voter suppression, allowing for all this to go. They're not putting in that work or that effort. But then they have the nerve to be blaming the Green Party. Like, blame yourself for not going to all 50 states. How about that? All right, so I wanted to get into also this whole thing about the Green Party being 35 years old and in fact pretty established in other parts of the world. Obviously, it did not start here in the United States. Started in Tasmania. That was in the early first few years of the 1970s. Very quickly, like within months, within a year, it had spread to Australia and New Zealand. And from there, very rapidly jumped to Europe and spread from there around the world. The name I thought was interesting came from the use of the name green, derived from the Green Bands, which was an Australian movement of building workers who refused to build on sites of cultural and environmental significance. So since 2002, I thought first I wanted to say that was really amazing. I think that just goes to show that just a few people taking a principled stand can inspire other people who do something else. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't exactly those people who decided to stop building on cultural sites, which is just, gosh, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so tired. Some things get to be called sacred, and other things, if people feel they're sacred, it's just not given the time of day. I just don't understand the logic, but I think that's really wonderful. And then for it to go on to inspire those who came together to create the Green Party is really amazing. But we'll have to get into the history of the Green Party another time. Since 2002, the most notable growth of the Green Party has been in Africa, actually. A lot of people know the story of Wangaari and the trees she planted, and just the movement around planting the trees and putting that into government, I think is just excellent. And that was really cool for me to hear when I read that, I guess. For me to hear when I read that. All right, anyways, I wanted to point out some people in positions of power. 1979, shout out to Daniel Brelaz, who became the world's first green member of the national parliament in Switzerland. That's amazing. 1979, that didn't take too long, y'all, too long. The Green Party in Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand, they were able to put people, like, offer up presidential candidates, I'm pretty sure. But yes, so the first member of a national parliament, Daniel Brelaz, then Angelis Emisis of the Latvian Green Party became the Prime Minister of Latvia in 2004, which is the world's first green head of government. Y'all, we've had a prime minister, okay? This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is not just like everybody treats the Green Party like a goddamn joke and doesn't listen to anything they have to say, okay? I know that they want us to feel like that here in the United States. Like, oh, you just, you guys are just some fringe organization and no one anywhere takes you seriously. This proves you. That's 2004. That's not so long ago, but we'll continue. There was also Raimons Vijonis of Latvia. So Latvia again took it up again a second time, 2015. Another green head of state. And then we had Austria come in. This is the person who I first learned was a president, a green president. And I was so surprised and proud and like, what? That's so amazing to hear. So Alexander van der Bellen of Austria, elected 2016, not that long ago. So while our country was falling apart at the seams, fucking Austria had it right. They knew what they were doing. Okay, and then also we're gonna give a shout out to Miss Caroline Lucas, who is a member of Parliament in the UK. Good job, Britain. I also knew Britain had a decent Green Party platform system going on over there. So I was not surprised to see that in the UK, somebody green had been made it. Those were the only ones I found just looking it up the best I could. I'd be interested to hear about more and, learn more if there's other people who have gotten somewhere deep into any other kind of government. I think that would be cool to learn. But at any rate, we're going to move on to the question of, can the third party work in a two-party system? And I think that kind of answers itself with American history. Let's just be real that the Republican Party was a rogue third party that jumped on in, put a president up a few years later, and that person became president. There was originally no Republican Party. There was there were we've had a lot of interestingly named parties throughout American history, but we had like the Whigs and the Democrats when the Republican Party created itself. And it was created, believe this or not, by a group of radical abolitionists and freed slaves. People who had been formerly enslaved had decided to join with these radical abolitionists. I've read that many times. I have actually never looked into what exactly made them radical. I don't know. Maybe they tried to blow up buildings or something. That would be cool, but I've never heard of anything of that nature, so I'm not sure what was radical. But at any rate, these formerly enslaved Black people and these abolitionists came together and created the Republican Party to fight for peace, a fight against the criminal institution of slavery, to, fight for a lot of different things that sound actually really wonderful today when you look at the original Republican doctrine that they fell from so rapidly and far. But at any rate, that was in 1854 that they were created. In 1860, they went ahead and put their presidential candidate up for election. And that person was Abraham Lincoln. And yes, we all know that the rest is history. He absolutely won. His message of, uniting the country made people feel, better. Like they really felt like something could really be done. At any rate, they quickly lost their roots of equality and peace. And there's just, the fact remains that it's entirely possible. It has happened before in our country. So this never's gonna happen. You guys are just wild out there, just constantly have no clue what you're doing. I mean, it is possible and it has happened. The idea that we have to keep in mind that the Green Party isn't just about the presidential election. It's also about all the smaller local elections, right, that will come before. So, if you're fighting at the local level, you can also be making a difference. You can also be changing people's minds, getting people in place who may be more willing to, work with you. And because they're in this community, people, it's more tangible in that way, right? It's less abstract. And we know how our communities work. You can then, change the system from a lower standpoint. Now, being an officially recognized, party with that 5% and that money and all of that does help with those local smaller elections. So they are all connected, but the presidential election is not the end all be all of all things. Okay, it isn't. I wanted to go ahead and give this quote that does, I think, highlight the combination needed of the local and the presidential elections combined, right? Well, who's the rapper? Two blunts together like an extension cord. That's what I'm saying. You got to put those two blunts together like an extension cord. The combination of the local and the presidential. All right, this Howie Hawkins quote. He said, "I never wanted to run for president. In fact, my message to that first Green organizing meeting back in August 1984 was that we can't build the party out of a presidential campaign. I've been through that with the Peace and Freedom Party in 1968, the two People's Party campaigns in 72 and 76. Curious if that is the same People's Party everybody's getting on with Nina Turner, or if that's just a new party also called the People's Party. And the Citizens Party campaign in 1980. People put a lot of effort into the presidential campaigns, but there was nothing left afterwards. So I said, we've got to organize local groups and start getting involved in local politics. And I still believe that. And ironically, as I later learned, to be able to run local candidates, you got to have ballot lines. And in 40 of the 50 states, the presidential vote is a factor that determines whether you have a ballot line going forward. Okay, so you see how this is all connected in kind of a circular way, but the fact remains is that the way to get there is to get the votes. You have to have enough votes. And so, yeah, this is the way. You're putting your vote towards something that absolutely counts. Let's continue. He says, in 40 of the 50 states, the presidential vote is a factor that determines whether you have a ballot line going forward, which makes it a lot easier to run the local candidates. I've been involved in the Greens for a long time, and I was minding my own business, and a bunch of people drafted me to run at the beginning of 2019. It took a few months to convince me, but I was finally persuaded, so here I am. And let me see. But I think Howie's so likable in that sense. I don't know, like I know a lot of people like want a lot of fanfare around their president, but I like him. He's simple, straightforward, boom. Let me see. Okay, so his other quote I wanted to read to you. He said, in 1984, we went out and organized those local groups. So that's like, I'm guessing he means that's like when the Green Party really started here in America like that. So they were going out and organizing locally. And he's saying this benefited them. So by the time Ralph Nader was ready to let us use his name in 96, he didn't run an active campaign, but he let us use his name to get ballot lines. We got on over 30 ballots because we had the organization on the ground. And that led to the 2000 campaign where Nader ran all out. Okay, so I think that is a really important. Oh, maybe that's what he was talking about in the other one. I think I said Al Gore, but I think I was supposed to say Nader anyway. I don't remember. Or maybe those were different elections. I think one of my kids just like ricocheted off my door and then kept running because no one was there when I opened the door. Anyway. Okay, so the 5% of the vote for the Green Party qualifies them for recognition as an official national party and for the federal funding. It also helps to spread the movement. This is also something that's a benefit. I don't know why people act like that means nothing at all, but it actually does mean something when you spread the movement, when people know that that's something people are seriously looking at, fighting towards. Just saying. It means ballot access, which also impacts the amount of votes. So if you can get the ballot access, you know, people see your name as an option there. And especially, you know, when people are getting their mail-in ballots, they're able to really sit there and stew on who they're going to be voting for, you know. And when they get those, you know, there's like a booklet we get here in California that says a little bit about different people and who's going to be on the ballot. Okay, so why bother with the Green Party? So we're trying to get the ballot lines so we can elect more and more Greens going into the 2020s. Commitment to building an institution to fight for the world that you want. Party affiliation does not begin or end with just this one election. The more people who register Green, the stronger the Green Party is. The more all parties will take Green issues, Green voters seriously. The Green Party represents, believe it or not, most of America's views on, healthcare, on the environment, on corporate power, on campaign finance reform, on corporate power, on so many things. Most people agree with the Green Party. They just don't think that it will all work out. And so because they don't think anyone else is, they won't. And it becomes this weird, like, will they, won't they? I feel like a bad person for doing it, blah, blah, blah. All right, so there's this quote from that I'm gonna just read it as is. As Dan Labatz presciently wrote in his recent New Politics review of Branko Marsatek's Yesterday's Man: The Case Against Joe Biden, he said, rather than choosing the progressive Bernie Sanders, the voters in the Democratic primaries chose Joseph Biden, the compromiser, the advocate of bipartisanship, an erstwhile liberal whose decades-long political career led him since the late 1970s to adopt a series of fundamentally conservative budget balancing positions, to create racist welfare and crime programs, to ravage civil liberties, and to become an advocate of U.S. military ventures around the world. An August 1st New York Times report points out that Biden also has had a career-spanning and unseemly close relationship with K Street lobbyists, former government officials turned corporate flacks whom even Democratic liberals fear. They will unduly influence a Biden administration for the worse. Okay, so I thought that was just super concisely said, right? Essentially, we have this person who clearly has a very long-standing, deep relationship with the corporate oligarchy, right? I always say that, the corporate oligarchy who runs us. And like, it's just very clear this man does not stand for a lot of the things that a person who would want to vote Green Party really stands for. And I don't see how you would want to vote for this and still feel highly principled about your decision. And I don't see how getting angry at other people who want to be principled about their decision, I don't see how it makes sense. I don't see why you wouldn't go for the people who are unprincipled first. I don't know. Okay, so the person who wrote this New Poll article that I just quoted from, Michael Hirsch, he also called this presidential election the kleptocratic racism versus neoliberal imperialism. And I was like, wow, you really can't say it much simpler than that, right? We've got a lot of stuff going on here. But he also had another quote I wanted to quickly read, one sentence. Both Trump and Biden offer a free ride for the predatory U.S. ruling class. And I think part of that is because both of their vice presidents are really people that the predatory ruling class likes. They like Kamala Harris. They like Pence. These people are, kind of their people who are in the running in this whole thing. So yeah, both of them are kind of two sides of the same coin in that regard, and that's just real. That's the facts. You don't have to vote for that. Voting for that and then being mad that it happens, I mean, like, what does anyone even say to that? You voted for it. You asked for that. It was preferable to you at some point. I mean, I guess some things are preferable than others, but I would prefer to vote for what I actually want. Ask for what I actually want. This New Poll article was called "Why Leftists in Most States Should Vote Green." In most states was their argument, which I thought was pretty astute. Essentially, they were arguing only some progressives arguably need to vote for Biden, right? Only some arguably would need to. to get Trump out according to how their state's rules are set up. But here's my argument. If you're not voting anyway, your vote to the Green Party still helps them get to the 5%. Okay. So, and it will be fitting into your beliefs and what you want. So here's the quote from that. In only a minority of states will a Biden vote by leftists matter and need to be actually called for. An effort by any socialist for Biden is defensible and necessary in defeating Trump only in the 14 battleground states at present, as demarcated in the Cook Political Report for late July, showing 4 states, Arizona, Georgia, Maine, 2nd CD, and North Carolina, as toss-ups. 7 leaning Democratic, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, 2nd CD, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I didn't know they split up states like that. Like, geez. And 3 leaning Republican, Iowa, Ohio, and Texas, of which there may reasonably be fewer in the weeks leading up to the general election on November 3rd. Absent those 14 states, polls show that the rest appear now to go for Biden or Trump by comfortable margins. So yeah, these people are out here bullying you willy-nilly. They don't know what state you're from. They don't know what the rules are of your state. But they're out here just demanding and trying to make you feel like an ass, when really they're making themselves into an ass. Because, honey, only these 14 states really need to be worried about anything. And if you were never even going to vote, you were just someone who's going to sit home anyways, that's really where you're at. Go and just put your vote in for what you believe in. Don't let these people tell you not to vote. Okay, so we're going to finish this up with some Jill Stein 2016 quotes. Okay, so I wanted to say one of her sentences I really liked when reading an article that she wrote. I'm going to link all of these down below for whoever cares to do a little further reading for themselves. She said, seek a positive path out of the two-party trap. I think that that's a very astute and simple observation, that you are trying to find this positive path. You are trying to walk this path that you believe in. And some people really are willing to, do the gray area, walk the line between this and that for what they believe in, you know what I mean? And for a lot of things, I'll do that. For, things, I guess, like in the moment, things, I've done that before in my life. But some people just aren't. And when it comes to politics, they just don't feel like they can vote for something that they're dead set against and feel comfortable with that. If there was an option to vote for somebody that they absolutely 100% believed in, or a healthy percentage believed in. Okay, so her other quote I thought was excellent. This should just make you feel, yes, Jill, yes. Casting a ballot for the lesser evil in a corrupt and failing two-party system, which only promises more of the same, is the very definition of a wasted vote. Woo! She says, in contrast, every vote for the Green Party is a true investment in the future. Yes. Yes, you're voting out here, you're doing the insanity thing, the same thing over and over, but you want different results, but then you're out here talking about other people wasted their vote. No, it feels like the people who were voting before me wasted their vote, because I'm looking at all these asshats that you have sitting in government, getting nice and wealthy off of God knows what, and I feel like y'all wasted your votes. I look at Pelosi, I look at Mitch McConnell especially, and I'm like, who out here wasted their vote on this man? On this creature who just seems devoid of any humanity? Who wasted their vote on these people? I want to know. But you out here telling me I'm wasting my vote. Please get out of my face. Okay. Speaking of wasted votes, we're going to finish this off with first with a quote from Howie Hawkins, final one. Don't waste your vote. Make your vote count. Vote for the kinds of things you want and make the politicians come to you. Honey, yes. And Howie's got this, right? Howie knows what he's talking about. And what he's talking about is if the things that you want are, what the Green Party is for, ecological wisdom, social justice, grassroots democracy, and nonviolence, then honey, vote for Green Party without any guilt or hesitation. All right? May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next time.